Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, thank you for your presence here today. Your community and church thanks you for your willingness to serve on the jury these next 6 weeks. In the coming weeks, there will be 6 separate cases that will require you to think critically and to be impartial as you are presented evidence and arguments by the prosecution and the defense. Before you can be certified formally as a jury, we must swear you in. Please raise your right hand and speak after me. With me. I solemnly pledge to fulfill and uphold all the duties of a juror faithfully and objectively, and I do so with no reservations. Upon this, your solemn pledge, I now impanel you as the jury in these cases. Your Honor, the jury is impaneled, and we are ready to begin. All rise. The court is now in session. Please be seated.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, having been sworn in as members of the jury, I would like to thank you for your willingness to serve in this capacity during our time together. I will, in the argument that follows, show you beyond a reasonable doubt that the cases you will be asked to adjudicate can be seen through no other lens than a guilty verdict. I trust that you will keep your oath as jurors and that your objectivity won't be swayed by emotional pleas, but in fact, by the facts of the cases at hand. And so we begin. The case before you tonight concerns the disciples of Jesus. On a certain day, these 12 men were gathered with Jesus. They were sharing a meal, as we heard in the earlier reading. They were in the home of a well-respected man, Simon the leper, when the action in question took place. We have the eyewitness testimony of those in the room that a woman entered, carrying a very expensive jar of perfumed ointment. Breaking it open, she anointed the head of Jesus of Nazareth. This woman displayed true faith in the claims of Jesus, knowing the history of the Jewish people and the practice of anointing kings and prophets. She anointed Jesus by pouring this most expensive oil over him, and thus acknowledging him as King of the Jews and Messiah. She confirms the anointed status of Jesus by making that known physically. And how did these supposedly faithful disciples respond? In the sworn statement of Jesus' follower Mark, who learned of the event through Simon Peter, Jesus' right-hand disciple and an eyewitness of the event in question, the disciples were indignant. Why was this ointment wasted when it could have been sold and given to the poor, they said. These men sat in judgment over the faithful action of this woman, tarnishing her reputation and making light of what must have been to her a costly purchase given to Jesus in faith. It's not just these words, that the disciples were speaking that are troubling, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. These men, supposed disciples of Jesus, have a track record of indignant behavior that leads to defamation. The very crime these men are accused of has happened before. It is a matter of public record that these same disciples tried to keep children from coming to Jesus that he might touch them. They sat in judgment, can you believe, over little children, deeming them unworthy to be in the presence of Jesus. Now, defamation is the act of falsely or unjustly injuring an individual's good reputation. These men believed that the woman at the dinner made such a poor decision that she ought to endure their rebuke. But then again, jurors, don't we all do that? It's often our response to disagreements with others. We're quick to write them off, maybe even verbally rebuke them, or write them messages that show such disdain. In today's world, we are all guilty of running to our respective corners of opinion and shouting at the top of our lungs, no matter the outcome. Oh, forget listening or evaluating honestly. Snap decisions often guard our emotions, and our emotions guard our thoughts and our words, spoken and written. Think about it. Who in your life have you written off as being unworthy of your love, or even the love of Jesus, simply because of some action in which they were caught? Could another's faith possibly be expressed in a way that, though it differs from your point of view, you might consider it still valid? We quickly realize that we are as guilty of defamation as these disciples. We play judge and jury and executioners over others while conveniently forgetting to look into the mirror at ourselves. Well, even so, the facts of this case remain the same. These disciples of Jesus defamed clearly what was an act of faith. They rebuked a woman who didn't deserve such treatment that is harmful to her reputation. The facts of this case can lead us to no other conclusion than to render a guilty verdict. Defamation of character has occurred. Thank you, Your Honor.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I want to also say thank you for your service. Let me just begin by asking a simple question. Have you ever been surprised by something? I mean, when you're surprised, think about it. How do you react? Some people simply don't say anything at all because they're in such shock, they don't know what to say. They simply can't move sometimes, they're in such shock. Others may be more verbal, just simply let out a scream. While it's difficult to figure out exactly how to interpret a scream, we can certainly understand it given the circumstances that we've heard. Then there are those, when surprised, who simply say the first thing that comes to their mind. Whether it's good or bad, they're just simply expressing themselves in a reactionary way to the situation. People who have long-standing relationships with one another know not to hold them accountable for what they have said in surprise. You see, what we have here today, ladies and gentlemen, is not defamation, but a court case based entirely on charges brought against these men for a surprised reaction. A stunning event, one that they had not anticipated. This is all just a simple misunderstanding. Imagine that you had spent 3 years traveling with a teacher who taught you valuable lessons. Lessons such as avoiding materialism, lessons such as caring for others, using your resources in such a way as to help the needy, truly sharing all that you have with others. When Jesus sent these disciples out on a mission, he sent them out without a money bag, with just the shirt on their back and the sandals on their feet. That would be enough. It is true, the court records correctly, stating that the woman who entered the home of Simon was carrying a jar. But let's not stop there, because already we have probable cause for concern. You see, we see nothing in the record that this woman was actually invited into this dinner. We simply hear that she just lets herself in and just comes on and enters. This is a stunningly bold move. We are then told that she just takes this jar and she carries it with her, and all of a sudden she breaks it, and she's got all the public attention right there that she needs. It shocks everyone. What a bold move. We are then told that she takes this jar that she had been carrying and now pours the contents over Jesus' head. And that oil, that smell of perfume just fills the air. And she pours that oil and ointment over the head of Jesus, while he and his disciples, who were invited, are trying to enjoy a meal with Simon the leper. You see, ladies and gentlemen, this was simply a reaction of 12 men who had been trained to think of others first. Surprised though they were, they wanted to do what the right thing was. Why waste all of this perfume when the money could have been used for the poor? I'm sure that even all of you have, at a time or another, have overreacted or said or did something that wish you could take back that you had never done. These men also made a simple mistake. They overreacted. This is not defamation of character. It is simply surprise, just plain and simple. And what is more, Jesus offers both the woman and the disciples good news. He says that she has done a beautiful thing to him. She has anointed him for his burial. We're just now beginning on our journey through a number of cases during this Lenten season. But already Jesus has in mind forgiveness that will come through his death and his burial, his resurrection. With the ashes that are on your heads and on our heads, we can take comfort. Even though we may overreact to events, Jesus always has plans in mind. We don't need to be surprised. Even when we cannot know or see the outcome of those events. The burial for which the woman prepares Jesus will be undergone for his disciples, for this woman, for you, for us. You have heard the words, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. But Jesus' burial doesn't end in ashes and dust. His burial ended with a bodily, glorious resurrection that offers eternal benefits to all who, like this anointing woman, like these disciples, like you and I, who place our faith in him. So you see, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, these men are not guilty of defamation. They have only expressed their surprise at a woman's actions. Actions that Jesus said were beautiful. Jesus uses their surprise to teach his disciples that they, and this woman, and even us, are not guilty. In the same way, you and I are declared not guilty through his death, burial, and resurrection. Thank you, Your Honor. I have nothing further.